All right, y'all. It's Sunday again. I want to thank everybody for coming out, watching me, supporting me. We're getting a big turnout. We're getting a lot of new subscribers. I want to appreciate it. Uh see you see what I'm talking about? I want to appreciate it. So, all right, everyone. It's Sunday again. I noticed that we're starting to get a lot of new subscribers. I just want to tell everybody I appreciate you. Uh Today is a very special guest, somebody that I've been trying to get in touch with for a long time. He's starting speaking in universities, and here's the reason why I want him on the show, because he's going to start teaching kids stuff that they should already know, like how to change a tire. Okay, that was a joke, but he's going to start speaking to universities about real life situations and real life scenarios that kids should know as going into adulthood. So, with that said, he's also a professional athlete or a former professional athlete. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an introduction that I'm probably going to edit out a lot. And after I hang up with him, I'm probably going to redo it. Ladies and gentlemen, Darren Shank. Darren, how you doing today?
I'm great, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing good. As you're really gonna see that introduction is gonna be pretty neat and nice after we hang up the phone. But anyway,
Yep. Post
so
production's a wonderful thing.
yeah, damn this speech impairment. Uh and then being from Alabama.
That's two strikes against you for sure.
Yes, yes. And then the bad thing about everything is that there's certain people that shouldn't do interviews. And when I decided to do a YouTube page, I said I should interview people. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. So it's like, did you ever look back in time? Like, did you ever watch MTV?
Oh yeah. Back when it actually played videos, you mean? Yeah.
Yes. Like, remember they had that contest that the next VJ. So what?
Yes.
Yes, and so they would be on TRL,
Yep.
and then they had like the two runner up. You have a guy that's been in television for years. He was made to do the job.
Hmm.
And then you had this guy who couldn't talk, had nappy hair, like hair spiked up, and everybody voted for him. I feel like that guy, but
way
nobody's
more
voting for me.
way more entertaining for sure. No, being overly polished is definitely not always the most entertaining route to go for sure.
Well, yeah, it was so funny to me is that I watch a lot of content on YouTube, and I'm 10 times better looking and 10 times better at what I do than most people on YouTube. But they got
That's
more
all you need, man.
subscribers.
That's all you need.
They're billionaires. And I'm sitting there like, what am I doing wrong?
well,
I'm
you,
retarded. Should I be
you
more retarded?
well, if you'd have started a little while ago, you'd be running right with those guys. You'll catch up.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well, I guess when I start not reading too. Anyway, so here's something, a little fact that you probably didn't know about yourself. You're a professional athlete. Well, at least
Used to be.
was a
Yeah.
professional athlete. Tell everybody what you used to do.
So I was a competitive racquetball player for most of my life. A chunk of that time, I actually played professionally. And yes, there is a professional racquetball tour. I was in the top 20 in the world for about three of those 6 years. So my highest ranking was number 18, and I held that for quite a while during that 3 year span. Um, it's not like tennis. We're kind of tennis's ugly cousin, right? Where instead of playing for millions of dollars in front of tens of thousands of fans, we played for thousands of dollars in front of tens of fans. The nature of the sport is such that you can't put a big audience around a racquetball court unless you have a portable all glass wall court to plop down in front of a stadium that's already built. So the sport did eventually get to that point. That was right as I was reaching about my retirement age of 30. So unfortunately, I missed that part of it. But I did really get a lot out of traveling around the country and playing professionally and focusing all of my time and effort on doing just that.
Now, how did you get started in that?
Well, kind of an interesting story. I've been a pro tennis fan for a long, long time. I grew up, for those of you in your audience old enough to know who this is, I grew up watching Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe and those guys play, and always wanted to be one of those guys. Unfortunately, I'm about 5'8", and I did not pick up a tennis racket till I was 15. If you're not somebody in tennis by age 15, it's over, right? And so racquetball was the next best thing because there was courts at the high school across the street from my house. There was always girls hanging out at the racquetball courts waiting for people to play, where on the tennis courts, you always showed up with somebody to play against. So being a high school kid with time on my hands and, you know, having a fair amount of interest in girls, racquetball seemed like a great choice, right? So I started playing outdoors, but I quickly was exposed to playing indoor racquetball. And my first tournament that I ever attended was actually a pro event. I played in the lowest amateur division possible, and I lost twice, but that's a different story. But my first exposure early on in the sport was to the pro level. And at that moment, I decided I want to be one of those guys. And from that moment forward, every effort that I had, every amount of effort I could put into becoming a pro, I did that. And after 10 years, when I turned 25, I declared my intentions to play on the pro tour, committed to playing full seasons, which was about 22 to 25 events a year.
Now, what were some of your biggest struggles on the circuit?
Well, money was a big issue for me. I come from a, basically middle class family. I didn't grow up a country club kid or anything like that. And I actually left college to play pro racquetball. I didn't know why I was at school other than this is what I'm supposed to do after high school. I didn't have a burning thing that I was working towards other than I wanted to chase being a pro racquetball player for as long as I could. So I worked myself in the position of being the racquetball pro at the nicest racket club here in the Phoenix area. And I got to know a bunch of local business owners and eventually put together an LLC with me as the product, and had investors from local business people who would sponsor me and write off that donation. And with that money, I was able to go and travel around the country and play all of those events year after year. That was one of my biggest struggles for sure.
Now, a little side note, when you say you're from Phoenix, Arizona, I visited your city in 2013. Now, everybody knows that I'm from Alabama. I went to Phoenix, Arizona in July.
Oh, that was a mistake.
Here's what happened. Okay, I was working with some public adjusters. I used to be an insurance adjuster.
Okay.
And two guys that I met in Texas called me up and wanted me to go, help them out. I said, sure. Well, I ate and I drank probably more than I ever did in my entire life. Okay. Now, keeping this in mind, I ate and I drank. When I say I drank the more alcohol than I ever did. When I came home, I was 20 pounds lighter. That's how hot Phoenix, Arizona is.
Summers are brutal.
I'm like, wow.
Yep. The summers are brutal.
Don't ask me how that happened.
Yeah.
I just know I lost 20 pounds. So I spent a week up there.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, we have reverse winters, right? Instead of hiding inside all winter long when it's miserable outside, we're doing that in the summers. And in the wintertime, it's gorgeous. Today, it's like 70 degrees outside, not a cloud in the sky. It's fantastic. This is the time of year that we residents all look forward to because the summers are awful.
See, and for me, when I was there, every time I was on the road, all you see is sand.
Yep.
So just being from where I'm from, I'm thinking I'm about to see a beach. I know I was in Arizona.
Nope, it's desert.
Yeah,
Different kind of sand.
I know I was in Arizona, but when my mind said, I guess the anchor that I said in my mind, it was like I saw sand. I thinking that I'm gonna see a beach.
Right.
Like, where's the beach? I
Yeah.
kept internally thinking to myself, where's the beach? I
Yep.
see sand. Where's the beach?
Yep. It's a
Because
different kind of
when you're
that
in
desert terrain is very different for sure.
yeah, when you're in Arizona or you're in that part of the country, you're gonna see a lot of sand, but it's not like you're in Florida.
Right.
It's no water. But talking about your experiences on the racquetball circuit,
Mhm.
what did you take away from, the struggles and not having a lot of money? What did you take away from all that?
For me, it was the best personal growth vehicle I could have had at that stage in my life. I never had a huge desire to be a world traveler, but traveling all around the U.S. pretty much on my own, I got to be friends with some other of the guys that played on the pro tour. So I would, when I arrived at a destination city, I would room with the same guy frequently and stuff. But um, I did a lot of travel on my own. I didn't have a team environment. Racquetball is very much an individual sport. So I had to build my own team of to assist me in my efforts. I mentioned the financial side of it. I worked with a trainer who happened to also work with a bunch of other pro athletes, a bunch of very famous football guys. I got to work out with those guys in group activities and things like that, which was kind of funny. I mean, I mentioned I'm not a real big guy, right? So me running around on the field with Donovan McNabb and Aeneas Williams and those kind of guys, trying to keep up with them was quite entertaining at times. So the sport itself taught me an awful lot about myself, how I was as a competitor, how I viewed my place in the food chain. If I have one thing that I wish I would have done a better job of, it is definitely that I enjoyed the process a lot more than I did. And so I learned that lesson during my racquetball career, and I try my best to apply that lesson learned to everything else I have done since.
Now you mentioned some big names. What are some of the big names that you met on the racquetball circuit?
So the trainer that I worked with had a combine prep program for the NFL players. So in the off season, some guys would come and work out. So I mentioned Donovan McNabb and Aeneas Williams and those guys. But in my travels, I got the opportunity to meet a lot of other people too. Again, for the older audience there, Joe Theismann, the quarterback for the Redskins, was a really accomplished racquetball player. In his day, he was actually involved in the sport, did some things to promote it. If you've ever seen the 30 for 30 show on ESPN called King of the Courts, Elvis Presley was on the verge of changing racquetball into being probably much more comparable to tennis because he was a huge fan. I never got to meet him, of course, but when he was on tour, he would actually arrange to go into a health club after hours with his entourage of people solely to play racquetball. So there's a bunch of peripheral stories like that involving the sport that are fun to share. But for example, to directly answer your question, I would go to the National Sporting Goods Trade Show each year, typically in Atlanta, and I got to meet Gabrielle Sabatini, who was a famous tennis player, and a bunch of other athletes like that. Even though we were in definitely a second or maybe even third tier pro sport, I had the opportunity to meet a bunch of professional athletes and interact with them. And some of my takeaways from that was they're just like everybody else, right? They may be $1 million athletes, but they're flawed human beings just like the rest of us.
Now, today you're a very successful businessman. Now, how did being a professional racquetball player, how did you transition that into the business world?
Well, I'm in sales, and so as the old adage goes in sales, you kill what you eat, or sorry, you eat what you kill. So for me
Yes, it's
playing
better
racquetball,
to kill it before you eat it.
Good
If you
point.
don't take anything away from this interview, you kill
Very
it
good life advice. Yep.
then you eat it. Yes,
Yep.
very good life advice.
Very good life advice. So there were times playing racquetball where there was one time in Vegas when I was in college. I went to a tournament in Las Vegas, and my entry fee check bounced, and I needed to win, or let me put it this way: I needed to make it to the finals to win the prize money to cover my bounced entry fee check and put gas in the car to get back home. That's real world pressure, man. That is tough to function under that kind of pressure, when instead of it being just about wins and losses on the court, it's literally about, can I get home, or am I going to have to borrow money from somebody to put gas in my car, right? So I did make the finals. I lost in the final. I got smashed by the guy in the finals, but I made enough money to cover my entry fee check and put $50 worth of gas in the car to get back to Phoenix. So when you segue that into the business world, in particular sales, in most cases you are compensated on the deals that you bring in. So there are dry spells. There are times when, you are at the very end of a process and all of a sudden things, get in the way, delay things. I've had clients who are literally have signed a contract and then said, oh, wait, we had something pop up that's on fire. We need another 90 days. Well, their 90 days means that it's going to be 120 days before I get a commission on that deal. And so dealing with the pressure of literally getting paid by performance was a great thing to take out of my athletic career and transfer over into my business career.
Yeah, this brand new microphone picks up everything that's going through the house because, this is a very low budget show. So I tell these kids, I say, hey, don't make no noise. The microphone is going to pick it up.
Yeah.
Please. And whatever you do, do not come in this room. And the first thing my wife does is come in the room, starts, because this room is abandoned. I wish I could turn the laptop around. You can see just a big mess because this used to be our bedroom, and it's just an old bedroom which we just turned into the junk room. Anyway, with that said, they all screaming, yelling, is picking up right here. So anyway, so you doing sales and racquetball, you didn't have to build a lot of rapport in racquetball. Of course, because it was competition. In today's society and doing sales, how do you build rapport?
You're right. I competed against the same group of guys all the time, so there wasn't a lot of rapport there in some cases. But I've always kind of been I've always been an extrovert, and I enjoy talking to people, and I always think that somebody has something to teach me. And one of the things I love about what my company does is that we solve some pretty serious problems for our clients. And so when I do a presentation to somebody initially, I'm not selling them our service. I'm educating them to what we do and how we can help. And that builds a lot of rapport right there, because I'm not trying to push them into a decision. I'm educating them into why I think the type of service that we offer in general would be helpful, but in particular, why we would be the best partner of choice. And that approach alone carries a lot of social weight to it, in terms of building rapport. And like I did a call with one of my clients this morning. He's the risk manager of a very large entity here in the US, and multi-million-dollar company, 25 locations scattered all over the US. And he and I talked for 45 minutes, and about 10 of that was business, right? We were talking about, everything from local sports stuff to his kids, how things are here in Phoenix, all of that stuff. And while not everybody has time for that, when somebody will take the time to sit and chat with me, I absolutely relish those opportunities, because not only do we have the best service to provide, but having that kind of personal connection absolutely strengthens the business relationship as well.
Now you're out of the racquetball industry. You're in the sales business, but you're about to go into the speaking business. And this is the reason why I wanted you to be on the show. Tell everyone what you're about to do and what you're about to speak about.
So I was I still am the racquetball coach at Arizona State University and have been for 14 years. So because of my association with the university, I have had the opportunity to speak within the business school at Arizona State and also at Northern Arizona University as well, and some of the local community colleges too. And what I'm trying to do, based on what I learned being a racquetball coach and working in that same peer group for the last 14 years, it unfortunately has become very evident to me that I have been teaching life skills disguised as racquetball lessons that are very necessary. And there seems to be a lack of those kind of things with maybe within the school system in general, certainly at the university level. And I hate to say it, but in some cases, the parents aren't necessarily giving the kids all of the real world prep that they need as they transition out of school into the job market. So I'm trying to be a resource and kind of a tour guide during that transition phase from school into the real world, and help the kids who are in school bolster their life resume, and so that they can stand out as a new candidate once they graduate and are hitting the job market. And then also when they're in the professional world, try to help them bridge the gap between the management and themselves. As we hear all the time, the millennial problem of some of the kids coming out of school being entitled, not good communicators, things like that. The management team gets a lot of coaching on how to deal with the millennials and Gen Zers, but the millennials and Gen Zers don't get very much help at all in bridging that gap to the management's desires as well. And so that's kind of the void I'm trying to help fill.
So basically, I'm going to say it. All fairness, Darren did not say this. This is coming from me. Basically, kids today are stupid, and he wants to help educate y'all. So whatever
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're very welcome. If anything that you don't take, if you take anything away from this interview today, just know if you're under 25, you are stupid.
And I'm going to use the word less prepared than necessary. I think that phrase is better than the word you chose.
That's Mr. Shank's. No, that's Mr. Shank talking.
Yep.
Joey here. I want you from the hip. You're stupid. You shouldn't say nothing. Stop talking. That's it. Now, Mr. Shank, however, says you're unprepared. Hey, I got different. We got different views. Okay.
Yeah, potato. Yeah, whatever.
Potato, grilled chicken. Okay.
Right.
But so I mean, you're a very busy man. You're a very successful sales businessman. You still coach.
Mm-hmm.
You go on to speak. Now, are you taking your speaking out of Arizona? Are you going to like nationwide?
When I can, obviously right now, because we're, in the COVID era, unfortunately, here in 2020, everything's done remotely. I much prefer to be in front of a live audience. It's a lot more exciting. It's kind of fills the void of that competitive adrenaline that I used to have when I was a pro racquetball player. I'm not particularly afraid of public speaking, but it's still something that, I get nervous and excited about, and I look forward to, and being in front of a live audience has that direct feedback that I really, really enjoy. So everything right now is being done virtually. But I really look forward to getting back to doing things in front of a live audience, both here locally and on a larger scale.
I had to apologize, Mr. Shank. I made a very big error. I said under 25. I meant under 30.
True. Yeah. Millennials, technically the definition would be 30.
Yeah. Y'all, I'm sorry. I didn't, for everybody who thought you were smart, like you were 26 and you thought you were still smart, I apologize. Nope. That was stupid of you for thinking that. So, with that said, so what do you do to, unwind? I mean, you're a successful businessman. What do you do to unwind?
Well, I don't meditate. I know that's a big thing that lots of people talk about these days. I do things that I find meditative practices. I write a blog. I'm kind of, that I consider that a therapeutic and meditative practice. I put my noise canceling headphones on, sit in a coffee shop and write on whatever topic I choose for that day. Some of it's directly about me. Some of it's, things that are happening in the world, whatever. And sometimes I even actually listen to the same song over and over to make it almost like a mantra, like I would be actually meditating. But by far, my favorite thing to do is fly fish. I've spent a lot of time fly fishing all over the West. And I'm from Pennsylvania originally, so I get back there once in a while. Being knee deep in a river fly fishing is by far my favorite thing to do. And it's the most soul cleansing activity that I know. There are times when I'm fishing, and if you've ever had the experience when you're driving and you're just sort of going through the motions and all of a sudden something catches your attention and you feel like you wake up, that's how fly fishing is for me. I'm so immersed in what I'm doing that I lose track of time. I forget to eat or drink anything. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a raging headache because I need to finally take a break and sit down and eat something and get rehydrated so I can continue doing what I'm doing. It's that engrossing for me.
Yeah, that usually happens to me when I'm driving, and then after after I get out of jail, they told me, hey, you was daydreaming again.
Yeah, it's I love it. I've done it since I was a kid. It's something I get to do with my dad quite a bit, but I do a fair amount on my own as well, and look forward to every chance I get.
Yeah, that's the reason why I shouldn't be a comedian. So let me ask you this: being that you are a sportsman, what today's sports do you watch?
Well, obviously with, the college football season being starting late and, stuff getting canceled and all that. I mean, I'm a fan of ASU football, of course, just because I'm, kind of on the same campus as they are. I love pro football. I'm a huge UFC fan. Still watch a lot of tennis. It was cool to see, the UFC have the opportunity to kind of fill the void this year of so many other pro sports being on hold. And I think that is going to really further their brand. I'd love to see some of the things about the UFC done differently, and protect the fighters more in terms of, I don't know if a union is the right way to go, but just to make sure that if they're really going to achieve the goal of being a top tier sport like pro football and others, that they are a little more conscious of taking care of the fighters that are, in realistic terms, putting their lives on the line sometimes.
Wow.
So I'm a fan of excellence in a lot of forms. I again, football is a big one for me, but even some things that, that I have, like I've never really played, I'm too short to play basketball. Right. But I will always watch the NBA finals, and I always watch the World Series, and I'm a sporadic hockey fan. Just watching athletes at the top level do their thing, especially if it's things that I know that I couldn't do personally, I always find that very entertaining.
Well, you mentioned the MMA, UFC, but all of MMA. What I would like to see them start doing, making the money that boxers make. If you remember that little stunt Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather did about 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Conor McGregor made a statement saying, "Man, I never made this much money ever," and he didn't make nearly as much as Floyd Mayweather. And, boxing right now, even though I think MMA popularity is a little higher than boxing now, boxing still makes like you reach that pinnacle, you making millions of dollars.
Yep.
As for like UFC, they probably make about $4 or $5 million a fight.
No,
I mean Floyd Mayweather would.
Well, Conor does. But the guy, like the other guys who are not as.
I'm talking about the peer. I'm talking about the main eventers.
Yep.
You're making about $4 or $5 million. Somebody like Manny Pacquiao, he makes about $60-70 million a fight.
Right. But when you look at the other end of the scale, the guys and the women that are fighting on the undercards, some of them are getting paid $10 grand a show and $10 grand if they win. Well, when you do an 8 or 12 week training camp with professional coaching and all of that, most of that check is gone right away the day after the fight, because you owe everybody that trained you to help you get ready.
Well, that's been
tough.
That's been an ongoing problem in all combat sports. I mean, boxing. I mean, you sign a contract. Sometimes people don't even know they're fighting that day. They just show up to the event because somebody called out. It's a big pay-per-view.
Yeah,
we need to. Hey, can you come fight such and such? And your signed contract right there. And by the time it's payday, they're handing you $100. That's been a problem in combat sports. I'm being a little sarcastic, but I mean,
well, you're not too far off base, unfortunately. There's a great documentary on, I believe it's Netflix called Why We Fight. And Ronda Rousey hosts the first season of it, I believe. And there was some great ones that was one that was focused on a boxer in California who ends up going to Mexico to take a short notice fight. And the guy that he fights has a terrible losing record. And basically this guy shows up, takes a beating, gets paid, and with that money is feeding his family for the next month. And the next month, and then he comes back and does it again. And so it really shows, the underside of all of that stuff and how dangerous it is at the expense of the fighters. So, I mean, I'm a fan of the athleticism and the dedication it takes to be at the top level of any kind of sport. It's kind of familiar territory. I don't really equate pro racquetball at my level. The number one racquetball player in the world right now is an unbelievable physical talent. He has played at least one season where he did not lose a single game to any opponent all year long. He gets compared to Roger Federer as the pro tennis player. There's no chance that Roger Federer could ever go through a season. He barely makes it through an entire tournament without dropping a set to somebody, which would be the same as a game in a racquetball match. And Cain Wazelenchuk, who's the number one racquetball player, probably could have played a bunch of other sports and been as equally successful with his level of talent. I don't put myself on that same level, even though number 20 isn't that far away from number one. The gap is big, believe me. So any athlete that reaches the very, very pinnacle of what they do, I have a ton of respect for, because I was close to that level, still looking up at those guys and appreciating how much better they were than the level that I achieved.
You forgot to mention the guy's name. What was the guy's name?
Cain Wazelenchuk.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting Google search.
That's a tough one. He was originally from Canada. He started out as a top-level junior hockey player, and hockey players are definitely some of the best athletes out there. And then he transitioned to pro racquetball and has been the dominant player for the past 12 or 13 seasons that he has been involved in the sport.
Now, you mentioned basketball. Myself used to be a very big basketball fan back in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, I was off and on a little bit. I still was loyal to the Bulls.
But it was different. It was definitely different in those days, for sure.
The Celtics Lakers rivalry got rekindled, and I started watching that with Paul Gasol and Kobe Bryant and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, et cetera, et cetera. I catch it, and then the Spurs and the Heat. But just recently, it's just I can't stomach watching a basketball game no more. And people, now, I want to make it clear. We just did a top 10, the greatest NBA players of all time on my show.
I saw.
Did you? Okay. And people get mad at me because they think it's something political or social. And this is not that type of show. We can talk politics and we can talk social, and I can educate you stupid people under 30. Now, however, but this ain't that type of show.
Right.
With that said, I want you to tell me right up your opinion. Tell me, who is the greatest NBA basketball player of all time?
Wilt
Your
Chamberlain.
opinion.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have said that. I will argue Wilt Chamberlain with a Bill Russell. But I will. Now tell me the reason why Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, so that's not a cop out to avoid the probably obvious answers of either LeBron James or Michael Jordan.
Excuse me, don't ever say LeBron James with Michael Jordan ever again. Go ahead.
Sorry.
But Wilt Chamberlain, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, a guy that came along and revolutionized that position and had the level of dominance over everybody on the floor, not just
except for,
you know
somebody that
one.
was except for one player.
Well, right. I mean, you bring up a very good point, right? You know, that to me, that was kind of the start of a talent truly separating itself from the peer group of the top level of players and having game-changing impact basically day in and day out. Now, I know you could throw Jordan and Kobe and the other guy in there in that discussion as well, but I kind of feel like, you know, he was one of the originators of that, or innovators.
When you say other guy, when you say other guy, was you talking about like Magic Johnson or
Sure. Since you told me not to mention LeBron.
No. I mean, who are you talking about? Grant Hill?
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, I kind of go back to, you know, to that. I mean, I was a huge Jordan fan. I think statistically, James has a real argument, but in terms of my NBA fandom today, I would love to see all professional sports lose some or all of their interest in making political statements about everything. I would love sports to continue to be the sanctuary for entertainment. And because of the world today, everybody who's playing a sport at that level has a platform to express their opinions and desires and things like that. And I would love to see more separation in that, like it used to be versus how things are now.
I agree, but in some ways I disagree. I think everybody has the right to speak their mind, and you know, I disagree. But you remember in '95 there was the NBA player to play for the Nuggets. I forgot his name right off the top of my head. That he was a Muslim, and he did something. I think he didn't stand for the national anthem, and it became this big controversy. You know, I'm all for people speaking their mind, but speak your mind and make sense of what you're talking about. Now, the reason why I don't like LeBron James, and I said it in the episode, which you can watch here on the CTS network, LeBron James is and now somebody saw the episode and said, you know, would you say that to his face? Of course not. You know, LeBron James is here. I'm not even in the same category of a human being as LeBron James. He has billions of dollars. I have hundreds of dollars. Okay, I have like $100. So, with that said, I do not respect the man who flops all the way around and cheats to win. And let's face it, you flopping. Michael Jordan would never flop. I do not respect the man that left a city twice that needed you financially. And, you brought Cleveland Cavs to a pinnacle that has never been even Mark Price couldn't do it. I do not respect a man who, somebody who paid our hard-earned money to catch a piece of trash or a towel that you was having, and you went out of your way to do it the opposite way because he had a mega hat on. And that man paid money to see you. I don't give a damn what your politics are. If you pay money to come see me, you're going to be treated with respect and dignity. LeBron James lost my respect all during those times. Now, what you do, Dylan, taking a knee, I don't care. You know, do what you do. That's not my cup of tea. Do what you do. But that's not the reason why I don't like you. I didn't like you a long time ago. And quite frankly, you know, you're never going to be considered number one in my book. Now, you may be actually, you know what? Be honest with you, somebody who goes to the finals 10 times and loses 6 of them really is not very good in my opinion.
Well,
Just saying.
you can add this to your list of things to not like about LeBron. And one of the things that really respect about Kobe Bryant so much is obviously they both came out of high school right to the pros. The day that Kobe Bryant signed his contract, he was in the gym for 8 hours with the mindset of, oh man, stuff just got real. I need to work to be able to have any kind of impact my first year. LeBron
Yeah.
James had a press conference of him signing his Nike agreement and other things like that.
Well, no, I don't
That,
hate. I don't hate him for that. That's business. Anybody who's gonna make money is gonna, But you speaking of Kobe, Kobe, Floyd Mayweather. People don't like Floyd Mayweather. I respect Floyd Mayweather 10 times more than I ever respect LeBron James just because of his work ethic. I don't have
yeah,
that big of a work ethic. People talk about how cocky Floyd Mayweather is and how he's tossing money around. He's doing this and that.
yeah,
Yeah, but what you don't see is when he was boxing, you didn't see him waking up at 3:30 in the morning, run.
right, right.
You didn't see him training all day long. You didn't see him at 12 o'clock at night, still training, and then go to bed at 1 o'clock, and then wake up at 3:30 again. He was the pinnacle of hard work,
Yeah,
and a lot of people didn't see that because you know what? He didn't really let you see it. What he wants you to
yeah.
see was him
The
being
Flash.
the Flash, and
Yeah.
the reason why he made a lot of money is because he was smart. He learned.
Yep.
He learned from, of course, professional wrestling. What do you want to see the bad guy do? You want to see the
That's
bad
right.
guy lose.
Yep.
And I made a lot of money off you people
That's right.
because I never betted against Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
The Conor McGregor fight, that was easy money. I
Yeah.
laughed my ass off to the bank because I didn't see how you think today's top fighter is going to lose. Yes, he was today's top. He was in 2017. He was the
hmm
top fighter in all sports. Lose to an MMA fighter in boxing.
Right. Well, I'm sure LeBron has an amazing work ethic as well,
I
despite
give two.
your
I give
distaste.
two
But
dams.
uh, but uh,
LeBron James can work himself into anything he wants to work himself into. I don't like him. He's a piece of. I don't like him. Do I don't care what he did. I don't care. You know what? You talk about stuff. You know that. And another thing is I think I don't know if this is true or not because in today's media there's a conservative media and there's a liberal
yeah,
media. I don't know if this is true or not, but if this was true, I definitely don't like him. He and everybody, the George Floyd murder, and I still call it a murder. I don't care what nobody's opinion is because I've cuffed people before and I've never put my knee on somebody's neck.
right.
I saw the whole video and I talked about this before. I suffer from panic attacks. And what I saw through the whole video, you saw the first part. The first part
hmm
was the ending,
Sure.
but after I was, and I say this, I was armchair quarterbacking when I tell you this. I am armchair quarterbacking because I wasn't there, and I'm easy because I can easily sit here and say something to the point where I wasn't there. I don't know what I would be feeling at the time. So I'm not saying who's good and who's bad. That's not my
Sure.
place. I'm not here to judge. But I am going to say is I know what a panic attack is. And George Floyd was suffering from a panic attack. It's
hmm
proven. He was because of the drugs that he was on. He was suffering from a panic attack. I feel that the cops could have done a better job to ease him down, calm him down.
Sure.
It's hard to say that to the people who's like, how can you say that? I know because I
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Right.
The cops could have just got back from a shootout, or
Yep.
cops have a hard job, and
Yeah.
it's hard to calm somebody down when you're frustrated and you're on your ninth hour on a 12-hour shift. But I know what a panic attack looks like. I know what it feels like, and when I saw that portion of the video, golly, man, that I could have. I know I wouldn't be the one on drugs or anything like that, but that could easily be me.
Yeah.
If I didn't have my medication, and what if I start panicking? It's stuff like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can turn race into it. Yes, do what you do, but for me, that that murder really. They say that he didn't die. I guess technically now it's been proven that he didn't die from the knee on the neck. But when people are sitting there screaming at you, saying, "Hey, check this out. That man's hurt. You need to.
Yeah.
You need to do." He's not breathing. Come on, now
Yeah.
something needs to. That all the videos. That's the only one I'm going to speak of because I have different opinions and I don't care.
Sure.
I'll say it. But that one right there, the George Floyd one, really hurt. But this is what I was saying about LeBron. The two cops get killed in the press. Somebody from the press asked, "What do you think about these cops? These two cops getting killed, getting murdered?" And this guy said, "No comment." Like, what? I could picture the cop's daughter or son.
Yeah.
Looks up to LeBron James, sit there and no comment off my daddy's murder. That's the type of guy. And then they talked about China and he was talking this. You know what? LeBron, I don't even want to talk about LeBron James. Well, this is your show. You can have the final word about LeBron James, but that's my opinion. But go ahead.
Well, the world is a very different place these days, of course, and we unfortunately are subject to the media's portrayal in many cases to be first, not necessarily to be accurate, and everything is taken out of context. And to your point, someone with the cultural exposure that LeBron James has, being an icon, not just in his sport, but transcending his sport, it would be great for somebody to see someone like that to say, I want more information before we all get, form our opinions about this, right? Just to wedge a little bit of logic and patience into the process, because the initial video that we all saw, we all probably came to the same exact conclusion. But then as the story continued to expand, now things change. And to have somebody who has his level of platform to make a statement and then just run with that is kind of disappointing, to say the least. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on the social commentary stuff either, but no. I would love to see the people who have the loudest voices always try to reflect patience and calm, and hey, let's all get some more details before we pick up a rock and start breaking windows in protest, right? Let's find out the whole story and then let's form an opinion on what happened.
Well, we're running out of time, so I got two more questions.
Sure.
I mean, you talked off camera about this collision that you had in 2015. Yeah. Real fast, how's your health?
So I was really lucky. I got hit head on by a wrong way drunk driver, which for some reason Arizona seems to have a very high occurrence rate of that compared to other states. I was headed to go on a fishing trip early in the morning, out in the middle of nowhere. I got hit head on by a drunk driver. I was doing at least 65 miles an hour. He was probably doing the same. I walked away from that physically with literally only a scar on the back of my left hand. And it's a small one. If I tried to show it to you, you really couldn't even see it. But it was clear that I had emotionally had some quote unquote damage from that. And I didn't start really addressing that until recently. I started doing some talks for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, sharing that experience. And that kind of brought that stuff back to the surface again and allowed me to process it and deal with it a little better. And so I'm really glad I undertook that, and I plan on continuing to do those talks. Hopefully I'm having some positive impact on people that have made a bad decision in terms of, getting arrested for drunk driving, and change their mind about, through the venue of my story, the impact that would have had I died in that crash. All of the students I ever worked with all of the athletes I coached, all of my business associates, my family, my wife, everybody, the impact that would have had would have been far reaching. And while you don't think about that when you're walking out of the bar to your car, my hope is that before you go to the bar, you remember a story like that and think, okay, what can I do to avoid that happening? And just make some plans ahead of time to avoid that. So thank you for asking. Physically, I'm just fine. Mentally, I'm doing a lot better. And I do enjoy sharing that story with the hopes that it is, helping to have some level of impact with others.
And real fast, where do you see the racquetball circuit going in the near future?
Well, good question. COVID is really putting the crimps to things. The Pro Tour is on hold. The amateur stuff is on hold as well. I'm hoping it comes back bigger and better than ever. There's a lot of growth in Central and South America. So I would love to see the Pro Tour expand to having pro events in other countries as well, to be part of the professional tour instead of all of that being contained within the United States. That would be a great next step for that sport to see.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very interesting interview, say the less. Darren, next time you come on, hell, we got to talk politics.
Let's do it. And I'll put on my ASU hat. You can wear your Alabama hat and we'll go back and forth.